In the 1970s, America learned a very simple lesson. Horsepower is emotional. Fuel cost is mathematical. Before the oil shocks, the dream was simple. Big car, big engine, big chrome, big noise. Then the pump changed the equation, not by a little. In 1973, crude oil nearly quadrupled. In 1979, oil prices more than doubled again. And suddenly the question was no longer, how fast is it? The question was, can I afford to drive it to work? That is how gas guzzlers die. Not all at once. Not because people stop loving them. With math. And this is where the doom math gets personal. For a lot of households, the vehicle in the driveway is not just transportation. It is a depreciating asset with a monthly burn rate. $800 on the car note, $300 on insurance, $100 on basic maintenance, and if gas spikes hard enough, maybe $600 a month just in fuel, that is $1,800 a month. That is $21,600 a year, before tires, before repairs, before registration, before parking, before depreciation. And here is the part that makes it worse. That $21,600 is after-tax money. You do not pay for the truck with your salary. You pay for it with what is left after taxes, deductions, insurance, and everything else takes a bite. So to spend $21,600 from your checking account, you may need to earn something like $38,000 in gross salary, depending on your taxes and deductions. That means the vehicle is not just costing you 21 grand, it is consuming the buying power of almost 40 grand every year for something that gets less valuable while you're paying for it. If you think I am wrong, tell me in the comments. But do it with math, because this video is not about whether big vehicles are cool, they are. This is about what happens when the carrying cost starts looking like rent. And now the math is getting ugly again. As of early May 2026, regular gasoline in the United States is already around $4.45 per gallon. That is before the full panic scenario. That is before the 1970s comparison. That is before the moment people start asking, what happens if fuel does not go back down? Because at normal prices, a big engine is a preference. At shock prices, it becomes a trap. A gas guzzler does not have to become illegal. It only has to become financially stupid. Here's the part people feel before they understand it. A 15-mile-per-gallon truck at $4.45 gasoline costs about 30 cents per mile. Drive 100 miles. Burn about $30. Painful, but survivable. Now double the pump price. At $8.90 gas, that same vehicle costs about 59 cents per mile. Drive 100 miles, burn almost $60. Now push it to $11 gas. That same vehicle costs about 73 cents per mile. Every 100 miles is more than $7 in fuel. Not tires, not oil, not insurance, not payment. Just fuel. Now imagine a normal commute. 40 miles a day, 5 days a week. That is about 867 commute miles a month before errands, school, groceries, side jobs, or weekend driving. In a 15-mile-per-gallon vehicle, that is almost 58 gallons a month just to get to work and back. At $10 gas, that is about $580 a month. Round it up with normal life, and that $600 fuel bill is not crazy. It is conservative. That is the problem. The vehicle still runs. The household budget does not. Let's do the simple doom math. Start with regular gas at about $4.45. If gasoline rises 50%, that is $6.68 per gallon. If it doubles, that is $8.90 per gallon. If it goes 2.5 times, that is $11.13 per gallon. If it triples, that is $13.36 per gallon. Now put those numbers on the road. At $6.68 gas, a 15 mpg truck costs about 45 cents per mile. At $8.90 gas, about 59 cents per mile. At $11.13 gas, about 74 cents per mile. At $13.36 gas, about 89 cents per mile. That means a 40-mile round-trip commute becomes about $18 a day at $6.68 gas. About $24 a day at $8.90 gas. About $30 a day at $11.13 gas. About $36 a day at $13.36 gas. 5 days a week, that becomes $90, $120, $150, $180 a week, just to move yourself to the place where you earn the money to pay for the vehicle. That is not transportation. That is a treadmill with leather seats. Now, gasoline does not move exactly one-to-one with crude oil. The pump price includes crude oil, refining, distribution, taxes, and retail margins, but crude oil is usually the biggest piece. So here is the more honest version. Take $4.45 gas. Pretend about half of that is crude oil cost, about $2.23. The rest is everything else. Now double only the crude part. Gas does not go to $8.90. It goes to roughly $6.68. Triple the crude part. Gas goes to roughly $8.90. Quadruple the crude part, like a 1973 style shock, gas goes to roughly $11.13. And that assumes the rest of the system stays calm. Refining does not get squeezed. Shipping does not get more expensive. Insurance does not panic. Inventories do not draw down. Nobody hoards. Nobody overreacts. In other words, that is the polite version of the nightmare. People still liked muscle cars after the 1970s. People still liked V8s. People still liked burnouts, noise, chrome, carburetors, and long hoods. The desire did not die. The daily driver math died. Because the pump started charging a cover fee for every mile. A big block car could still be fun on Saturday. But driving it to work 5 days a week became a different question. And once that happens, vehicle culture changes fast. Not because people get smarter, because the receipt gets louder. The 1970s did not kill the gas guzzler because Americans became less American. It happened because the carrying cost changed. The 1970s were brutal. Gas lines, shortages, odd-even rationing, small cars suddenly looking smart, big cars suddenly looking like debt with tail fins. But this time has a different kind of pressure. Today, people are already stretched. Car payments are bigger, insurance is higher, repairs are higher, tires are higher. Trucks and SUVs are heavier, and millions of people built their daily life around vehicles that only make sense when fuel stays tolerable. That is the trap. A gas guzzler is not just a vehicle, it is a monthly budget waiting for the pump to attack. You do not need to predict politics to understand the risk. You only need to understand exposure. Too much fuel moves through too small a door. The Strait of Hormuz is one of the world's most important energy choke points. In 2025, nearly 20 million barrels per day of oil exports moved through it. That is around 25% of world seaborne oil trade, and the bypass capacity is not even close to enough. The available pipeline capacity to reroute crude around the strait is estimated at only 3.5 to 5.5 million barrels per day. So the math is simple. If nearly 20 million barrels a day are exposed, and maybe 3.5 to 5.5 million can realistically be rerouted, then most of the system still has to face the choke point. You cannot reroute an ocean through a garden hose, and when a market sees that kind of exposure, prices do not wait politely for certainty. They move on fear. They move on risk. They move on the possibility that tomorrow is worse than today. That is what the 1970s taught us. Oil shocks are not just about missing barrels. They are about panic math. This is where the gas guzzler starts dying. Not in the showroom first, in the driveway. People do the same calculation millions of times. Can I keep the truck? Can I afford the commute? Can I take fewer trips? Can I combine errands? Can I sell it? Can I buy something smaller? Can I find a hybrid? Can I charge at home? Then the market starts doing what markets do. Big, inefficient vehicles get harder to sell. Used fuel-efficient cars get more expensive. Hybrids get cleaned off lots. Small cars stop looking cheap and start looking strategic. EVs stop looking like a culture war object and start looking like a household fuel hedge. Because the question changes. It is no longer what do I want to drive? It becomes what can I afford to move? That is the death spiral. Fuel price rises, cost per mile rises, carrying cost rises, demand shifts, resale values shift, automakers shift. The big, thirsty daily driver becomes a luxury item, then a weekend item, then a bad financial decision with cup holders. Now imagine the next version. Gas hits $6, then $8. Then people start seeing $10 and expensive states. The internet turns it into a meme for about 12 hours. Then the household budget catches fire. The guy with the 15 mpg truck does the math. The family with 2 SUVs does the math. The contractor does the math. The delivery company does the math, the school district does the math, the farmer does the math, and every calculation points in the same direction. The vehicle still works. The lifestyle does not. That is worse than a shortage. A shortage says there is not enough fuel. A price shock says there is fuel, but maybe not for you. This time, the response would not look exactly like the 1970s. In the 1970s, the small car became the escape hatch. This time, the market splits. People who must stay with gas move toward smaller cars. People who need range and flexibility move toward hybrids. People with garages, driveways, solar, or reliable home charging start looking at EVs differently. Not as virtue, not as politics, as insulation. Because when gasoline is cheap, electric cars compete against convenience. When gasoline is expensive, they compete against pain. And pain is a powerful salesman. The death of the gas guzzler does not start at the dealership. It starts in the monthly budget. The 1970s did not kill big engines because people stopped loving power. People will always love power. They killed the gas guzzler because math showed up at the pump. Horsepower stayed emotional. Fuel stayed mathematical, and math won. That is the part nobody likes admitting. A big engine can survive criticism. It can survive fashion. It can survive regulation. But it struggles to survive 10 gasoline. Because at that point, the pump is not selling fuel anymore. It is charging rent on motion. So if a modern oil shock rhymes with the 1970s, the first casualty will not be horsepower. The first casualty will be the ordinary person's ability to use it every day. That is how gas guzzlers die. Slowly at first. Then every time you fill the tank.